Ukraine a couple of days ago that took out a third of Russia's cruise missile capable aircraft, uh, and has really not just shocked the world, but really potentially changed the way warfare is done. Possibly not necessarily for the better for some Western countries that refuse to realize when they're at war, but really has changed the face of this particular war. We're still we're still seeing the effects of it. There's peace negotiations that start, I believe, today between the countries, which is interesting. I see it as a bit different from Israel begging for peace from Hamas. In Ukraine's case, if it doesn't have support, it is in a very difficult position, and it is doing amazing from that position. Has been, by the way, from the start when people assumed Russian tanks would just roll into Kiev within days, and what, 3+ years later, we are seeing Ukraine continue to show that really, if you Russia, first of all, to show that Russia is not the threat that we always thought it is, but also that if you actually are fighting for something that you believe is right and you do it the right way, you can win against a bigger enemy. Look, I'm hopeful, although I don't think the West will use the opportunity. I'm really hopeful that people realize Russia is, in directly or indirectly is behind so much of the evil that happens in the world. And if you go back enough, it is, it's just more and more of the evil. China would not be what China is today had it not been for Russia. The Middle East would not be what it is today if it wasn't for Russia. And of course, Russia itself does what it does. So yeah, this still evil empire, even after the fall of the Soviet Union, has just been hammered on its own soil in a really beautiful attack. So we should applaud Ukraine first and foremost, and thank them, and learn the lessons that the rest of us can learn from Ukraine on how to fight wars. Welcome to the Daily Objective. I'm Razi Ginsburg. I'm joined by James Valiant. James, yeah, your thoughts.
You know, just on your Russia thought there, Ayn Rand, who was herself a native of Russia, she was born and raised in St. Petersburg, Russia, and when asked about how the Soviet Empire could collapse, she said, "Show a little moral backbone, and the regime could collapse without the loss of a single American life." And it turned out, with respect to the Soviet Union, that was absolutely true. In her last public appearance, she was asked in the question period, I think this was in 1982, is there any hope for Russia? And there was a broader cultural statement, and she had a one-word answer: no. It was flat. It was simple. Is there any hope for Russia? They are the focus of so much evil in the world, and it is a product of their culture. And with respect to this brilliant attack, Operation Spiderweb, my God, this is how you fight a war. This is how you do it. Trump's criticism may have liberated Zelensky, but look at this attack. All the way from Siberia to the Mongolian border to northern Russia, they really penetrated into enemy territory. And that is the way you have to fight a war. Biden had put the handcuffs on aid in terms of, well, you don't want to, have these weapons. And until the very end, you don't attack inside. But wait a minute, they invaded your country. They're killing your civilians. Of course, you attack deep into that is the moral responsibility of any government that has been invaded. The idea, and we see this with Israel, we see this with Ukraine, it's the same kind of thing. We put moral handcuffs on the ability of countries to simply defend themselves. And when you are attacked, you go deep into the enemy territory and you attack back and you make them hurt inside their country. And it doesn't matter whether they're a nuclear power like Russia. Look at what has happened. Russia is not likely to use nuclear weapons. They know what the consequences of that are. And this is rewriting the rules of the game here. All I can do is say hats off to Zelensky. And then when I hear I've read this on the internet, and I haven't confirmed it, but I read a quote that is attributed to Trump where he is distressed. Whoa, these people were just, those planes were just, he attacked all these airplanes. Russia has got well more than 100 land-based fighter jets, and many of these, a good chunk of these, were attacked and were set on fire and damaged by drones that were launched. I mean, my God, how brilliant. And Trump says something like, oh, those planes were just sitting, these innocent people were just sitting. Wait, what? Let's back up a sec here. Let's see, a couple of years back in 2022, the Ukrainians were just sitting there and their whole country, Kyiv was put under siege. Innocent civilian children were.
Did he say the planes were just sitting there?
The comment was something like that. As I say, I haven't confirmed the statement, but the reports are that I have been able to confirm is that Trump is angry that on the eve of the peace talks that he wants to have, that Ukraine should do such a thing. Oh, so so no matter what Putin says, no matter what Putin does, he won't accept the ceasefire. He was issuing more demands on Ukraine, making it impossible. He wants, in effect, Ukraine to be once more a satellite of Russia. He's still making that demand. But now Trump is upset with, once more, he can't say that Putin's a dictator. He can't say Putin started this war and he's the aggressor. Trump is angry at Ukraine for hitting hard in Russia. But that is the moral responsibility of any country that's been invaded. You attack the other guy in their territory, where they live, where they sleep, make them feel exactly 10 times harder, in fact, what they've inflicted on you. That's what you have to do. And so, hats off to Zelensky. This is magnificent. This is the moral way you fight wars, the moral way, not the immoral way. And that's the whole difference here. It's the way we frame it morally. Oh, and get this, Zelensky was not targeting civilians and kidnapping children like Putin has been doing in Ukraine. They are hitting fighter jets. Now, I would still therefore say to Zelensky, you need to be a little less concerned about who all you're hitting deep within Russia, because you have demonstrated your ability to hit deep within Russia. And so go for it, and go for it even harder, is what I would say to Zelensky. You go, boy, is what I would
Yeah.
say to Zelensky
Although,
right now. I
James,
wouldn't be
this
getting
this
angry at him because he's messing up my chances
I was
for.
gonna say this was a good news show, and you have to bring Trump into it. By the way, do you think this is the what his response? I can only imagine what he would have said about, those people just chilling on the beach in Normandy and the Allies going to kill him. Like seriously.
Seriously.
Thank
Oh,
you,
you're
Roland.
right. It should
Yeah.
be focused on Zelensky taking a far more morally correct stance, hiding deep within Russia. They deserve it, and they deserve more.
Thank you, Roland, for the super chat. Roland says, "Go Ukraine." Susie said, "My first thought was Ukraine took a page out of Israel's book, the opposite of the title of the show." Yes, that too. I mean, yeah, Israel did something similar on a wider scale, but against not as strong as enemy in 1967. I'm thinking more about Israel today. Israel can take a page out of Israel's playbook in the past, but yeah, this is we uh, we were talking about like Ukraine is the one of the only issues on which well, actually I don't necessarily want to say that Ukraine was an issue on which Trump was clearly worse than Biden and Harris. But even under Biden, um, there were all sorts of restrictions of what you shouldn't do, and this would probably be frowned on by Biden as well. Although if later Russia ends up losing the war, he could take credit for it, because as he's done with the Syrian regime falling because of Israel's actions, and him demanding a ceasefire, but then saying, "Oh, the results are because of the war that we gave unequivocal support for." So Ukraine is doing this with no I don't want to say no real allies, but with allies that are as half-assed as everything the West has done militarily since World War II. And rather than getting the full support of the West and people saying, the West saying, look, we recognize that Russia is an enemy. These planes would not just be used to kill Ukrainians. They could be used, to kill the rest of us. Russia threatens everybody all the time. So
Georgia,
Yeah.
Lithuania, Poland, you name it, helping China in an invasion of Taiwan, helping Iran. You remember who Putin's friends are. Remember who Putin is interacting with, trading weapons with, trading oil with, etc. You are absolutely correct. An aggressive dictator, and it doesn't matter whether Israel is the stronger one or Russia is the strong. It doesn't matter. Your enemy attacked you. Your enemy attacked you. When your enemy attacks you, you must absolutely defeat, destroy, incapacitate, insofar as you're capable. I don't think Ukraine could destroy Russia. No, in the same way Israel could and should destroy Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis, etc. Of course, the relative strength is not the question. The question is, who is the aggressive dictator here? Who are the savages who started this violence? And once the savages start the violence, you have a more, if you're the leader of a country and it's your job to protect your citizenry, it is your moral obligation to do everything in your power to go for it and go for the throat.
Yeah, and somebody says Ukraine at war since 2014. Well, Russian savagery didn't start in 2014. That was when Russia started this current war. Yeah, that is correct. They expanded it massively in 2022. But yeah, this is again, in the early days after in 2022, the West was kind of, even European countries were kind of hesitant to support Ukraine because they thought it's going to be over. And when they saw Ukraine fighting back is when they started supporting Ukraine, which so I hope this may be a moment where the West steps up its support. I mean, Trump is going to be if he doesn't take a clear stand on this on the right side, is going to be the president that could have gotten rid of the threat of Russia for the world and chose not to, just like he appears to be choosing not to with
West,
Iran.
the West's betrayal, in effect, of Ukraine, it may be, and Trump's recent attitude and insults on Zelensky, may be what has liberated Zelensky. When you're getting crucial military aid from people and someone, you tend to do, okay, I won't, I'll try and do what you say. And this may have Trump may have liberated Zelensky. That's the relevance here of what Trump's attitude toward Ukraine has been. And it can be an object lesson. It really can and ought to be an object lesson. But look how deep into Russia. I mean, all the way as far as Siberia, all the way as far as the Mongolian border, and the multiple targets and dozens of fighter jets attacked. This was a brilliant, magnificent attack. This is how you respond when your country's been attacked. This is how you respond. They brilliantly pushed back the siege of Kiev, absolutely. And yeah, look, and Mr. Trump, you're on the hook too, because after the invasion of Crimea, he boasted in Trump 1.0 in his first term, look, we're sending more than just blankets like Obama did. We're sending weapons. And now what is he doing? He's now complaining. He's now focusing his criticism on the victim of the attack, the
Yeah,
people who are
Paul.
trying to territorially aggrandize here. He's taking their side openly. But look, Trump has no moral compass. He can't distinguish a dictator from a semi-free nation. He goes to Saudi Arabia and he talks to the Arabian people. He says, "Look, we're not here to change your culture. You do you, we'll do us. Even if it means you're living in the dark ages when it comes to treat the way you treat women and the way you treat ethnic minorities and the way you treat gays and not having any kind of respect for individual rights and promoting this Islamic ideology, which you see burning people to death in my country in Colorado just the other day. No, Mr. Trump, you are morally sanctioning the cause of all this violence that we see against Jews worldwide right now. When you go to an Arab Muslim country and you say your culture is just fine, you don't have to change. There's nothing wrong with you all. No, that ideology that comes out of these imams and these sheikhs and these religious authorities in the Muslim world, that is the source of the problem with Israel. That is the source of the problem with the murder, death, terrorism, fear that, quote, Zionists, meaning Jews, are facing in the United Kingdom, Canada, and look at what's going on in my country right now. There is increasing violence. Why? It's the ideology that you refuse to recognize as evil, Mr. Trump. And it's the same with Putin. He doesn't know a dictator. He would know a dictator if it bit him in the rear end. He doesn't distinct. I respect Xi of China. Oh, Putin is a wonderful guy. Okay, when you cave in on the objectivity of the moral difference between the liberal West and dictators and Islamist savages, then what you've done is you've actually undermined the entire case for peace. And what he's doing it for? Oh, peace. I'm going to be a peacemaker, you see. Uh-huh. Well, peace with monsters means more violence in the future. Well, that'll be under some future president, maybe. And that won't be my fault, and I'll be able to criticize them like I criticized Biden, even though you set up the whole situation by inadequately helping Ukraine in the first place when you were first president, Mr. Trump.
Well, you're assuming there's going to be a future president rather than a Trump presidency forever. But it reminds me like George W. Bush had this axis of evil speech. I think it was in the State of the Union that he mentioned a few countries. Was it Iran, Iraq, and North Korea, if I'm remembering correctly?
North Korea,
It was a very
Iran.
great line, axis of evil. The problem is he left Russia out, and Russia has always been at the center of that. And all these, again, all these different countries, Russia is being helped by North Korea in this war. North Korean soldiers and troops are on the ground. They don't have the I don't know about sending troops. They just do it. Iran and Russia are very closely working together. So yeah,
Oh,
this is
Britain and the United
really
States will never put boots on the ground in Ukraine. North
yeah.
Korea can order at gunpoint those boots to show up on the ground for Russia. And this is totally asymmetrical.
And
Uh,
nobody's asking for boots on the ground.
no, no,
Give them
no.
the
I'm not
weapons they
saying
need.
no. I'm not
Yeah,
saying we should put boots on the ground. We probably don't need to if we took the handcuffs off Ukraine and supplied them properly. Look at what they are capable of doing. That's what this shows. That's what this shows. And you can
yeah.
hear Putin for domestic consumption lying to his own people because failure on his part, even partial failure, even some success on the part of Ukraine, undermines his authority in Russia. So the way to really undermine Putin, and I'm not saying again, not boots on the ground for us and not we going to war with Russia directly, but the point is that if he is perceived as failing in Ukraine, that could destroy the entire Putin regime just by itself. This is your chance, Mr. Trump. Help, don't hurt, don't criticize at the very least. Don't bitch and moan about Zelensky. He's defending his country. His civilians are the ones who are just sitting there being attacked. His children are the ones being kidnapped. I mean, my God, Mr. Trump, can't you at least get the moral equation correct?
Well, no, he can't. By the way, to the pro-Russia savage in the chat, we're not going to send you to Siberia, but we will kick you out at some point if you don't. I'm not expecting you to even pretend to be civilized. You probably don't know how, but we will decide where that line is, and that will be the last comment you post. Thank you, PC, for the super chat. PC says. Razi, last night someone rang on my doorbell at 1 a.m., wanted to come in, looked Arab, was really scary. We called the police. He disappeared, did not open the door. I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, not opening the door
Do
seems
not
like a good
open the
policy,
door.
and it's one of the
No,
one
no,
of the
no,
reasons
no.
why in London, from very early on, I decided I am not going to live on a ground floor, always at an apartment, always make it difficult, because even if they do manage to do something, the police will show up hours later when they know there's no risk to them. They will file some report. They'll tell you there's no public interest the next day, and that's that. Unless you get killed, and then there might be a murder investigation. So
Please, to all
yeah,
my Jewish friends, all my Jewish friends, all my anyone who is Jewish, in fact, and anyone who is a vocal supporter of Israel, be careful. These people are not messing around. They are savages. They think nothing of engaging in terrorism, doing violence against you. Please be safe. There is a systematic attack on Jews going on right now in the West. It's nothing but terrorism. Be careful out there. They do mean you death and harm and destruction. Yes, they want to bring down Western civilization. Yes, they are targeting you just because you're Jewish. Don't be taken in by this code language Zionists, like this murderous monster who set people aflame in Colorado. Oh, yeah, I want to destroy all Zionists. You know what that means.
Well, yeah, but he has been more explicit in kind of his history. It's been about the Jews. It's always about Jews when they say Zionist. And I think the pretense is kind of something they're comfortable giving up on, which they weren't a couple of years ago. So we know where that is heading. Thank you, Gail, for the super chat. Gail says, "Go Zelensky." Yeah, Zelensky himself oversaw the operation, and oversaw. He was doing what a president does in this situation. This was a year and a half in the making. Like they planned this, like Israel. I think who was it that mentioned the Israel's pager operation? This was planned kind of in the same way, and is up there as super impressive military operations. Where in Ukraine's case, again, and this is the difference, and this is what I say Israel should learn. In Ukraine's case is the absolute best that they can do with what they have, which is much less, much less than what Russia has. In Israel's case, this is what Israel can do within the restrictions it puts on itself and how it fights wars. So, impressive in both cases, but morally, this one is more impressive.
Because they're the weaker country, because they don't have the military and frankly the population that Russia does. Russia is a much bigger country. Russia's got nuclear weapons. Russia's got all kinds. Russia's been armed, loaded for bear for some time now. And as I say, the comparative strength doesn't matter morally, but it does matter in that sense that you just brought up. Israel doesn't have the excuse Ukraine does. They actually could thoroughly take it to their enemies, utterly destroy Hamas. And when they pull their punches and hold back because of UN criticism or Western criticism, I mean, my God, European leaders are just despicable in the way they treat Israel. But it's part of the thing that factors into European leaders in their mind. Israel's so much stronger. They need to just lay back. No, when you're attacked, when October 7th happens, you do not hold back. You utterly destroy and defeat your enemy. And you do not listen to these people saying, oh, well, you could be hurting civilians over here. And you absolutely don't provide aid because the minute you do, they'll say, well, we don't approve of the way you're giving aid. The difference with Israel is shameful. With Ukraine, I mean, my God, the fact that they're willing to do and able to do something like this when they are the smaller, weaker country comparatively, militarily, to their enemy, that is heroism of the highest kind. So my salute, hats off to Mr. Zelensky and his people. They did
Yeah.
an amazing, marvelous thing here.
Absolutely. And yeah, we're going to talk about Israel's groveling and how much it achieves whatever the goal is on the reality show, which you will be joining, as will I, as will Michael Kaufman and Jonathan Honig. Thank you, Bonnie, for the super chat. Thank you, Jonathan Honig, for the super chat. Um, there was another. Oh, there. Thank you, Yair, for the super chat. Yair asks, "Is China an enemy of the West?" I would say absolutely yes.
I
James?
do. I am not part of these. We can work with China. I'm open China. Work with we have tried that, been there, done that. Nixon went to China. We opened up trade, 30, 40 years ago with China, and we thought, oh, see, they'll westernize, they'll liberalize, they'll suddenly not. No, no, no. Look at what they're doing. Look at their military posturing. Look at the Uyghur, what they do to the Uyghur. Look at how dissidents disappear. They no, they are an evil, evil regime, and we cannot materially or morally help them in any way. Even you listen to Trump again on negotiation. Oh well, China could be really successful if they just got a trade deal with us. Well, that's not my goal. I do not want the West to economically and materially prop up a regime as evil as China. And if they could get away with it, they would be militarily aggressive in Asia in the same way Russia is militarily aggressive in Europe. So, yeah, I put them in the same pot. In one sense, I think China is a little more of a threat than Russia is. I think, comparatively
It's
speaking,
more of a
frankly.
threat, but it also it brings me back to sometime in recent days we were talking. I don't remember the context, but somebody saying we don't want forever wars, and I said, look, forever wars is the uh, Chamberlain approach rather than the Churchill approach. It's the
Precisely.
peace in our time, but peace at any cost is no peace at all if you're begging the enemies. And this is the thing. If people had actually listened to Churchill after World War II, maybe they would have taken care of Russia when it wasn't a nuclear armed country, and then not only would we not have had the threat of the Soviet Union and the various countries that were Soviet satellites, we would not have had, again, the threat of China, which, yes, absolutely, today militarily for the West, China is a much, much bigger threat than Russia. And yeah, so much of this would not have been an issue had we realized that the way you prevent forever wars is you stop the people who start them.
And they are dictators. Please read Ayn Rand's article. I know I recommend it every other show, but please read Ayn Rand's article in Capitalism, the Unknown Ideal, The Roots of War. If you don't want war, if you don't want forever war, realize the cause of war, dictatorship. Dictatorship is the cause of war. It's Russia, it's Putin, it's Xi, it's uh, Kim in North Korea. It is the Ayatollah. It is dictatorships that cause war, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't like war, turn your back on dictatorships. Do not give them moral or material support. That is the key here. Do not sanction them in any way. If you want peace in our time, to use Mr. Chamberlain's phrase, what you do is you stop sanctioning and supporting dictatorships.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tom, for being a YouTube member for 35 months. Tom says Zelensky and the Ukrainian forces have again shown how reason is the antidote to brutes. Remember that hypersonic missiles were shown to be empty threats. Yeah, so much of what Russia is doing is shown to be empty threats. And again, like just look at the opportunity for the future, an opportunity to remove this. But unfortunately, we in the West are busy, kind of not you and me, but many in the West are busy blocking the roads, demanding totalitarianism and support for totalitarians everywhere. This is, yeah, we will look back at this, unfortunately, as a missed opportunity, another of many missed opportunities, if we don't actually say, yeah, we freedom is actually better than tyranny, and peace is better than war, and the way you get to peace is by, again, removing those who start wars. And speaking of people who start wars and people who report on wars and report on stuff that doesn't even happen at war, because why not? We're going to talk a bit more about, not a bit more, this is new. So we talked a couple days ago about the massacre that was reported everywhere, even though it never happened, not in that it was inflated, but in not a single shot was fired. And so some news outlets kind of half-ass retracted it, but are reporting it again daily because the same source that told. All right, the reality show, James. Thanks for
Yes,
joining me. I'm
we,
starting the reality show before
yes,
before the show starts. So, yeah,
save it for
everything I
five
just
minutes.
said, I will repeat in a couple of minutes. Thanks everybody for watching. The reality show starts in a couple of minutes. I will restart that rant there. Thanks.
Be safe, my friends.